Today, I would like to talk about self regulation. When we are faced with the daunting journey of recovering from trauma, you can feel overwhelmed by how much there is to heal. The journey of finding the right support and the simple task of just getting through the day with self compassion, hope, and self acceptance. I would like to begin with a gentle reminder that it's not about healing from everything that you've survived in a single day, a single week, a month, or even a year. You are on a journey to learn how to love the one within you that survived what you did. These parts of you that survived probably feel unworthy, scared, intimidated, angry, and confused quite a lot. These are parts of you that probably don't trust life or other people. And given what you survived, that is fair. I'm curious, have you ever felt as though there are multiple people living inside of you? And I'm not talking about a multiple personalities disorder diagnosis. I'm just talking about different parts of your consciousness that feel really different, perhaps different versions of yourself from childhood or even in your adolescence or adulthood. If something tragic or traumatic happened, that there's just parts of you that are like, wow, you sound really different than my usual voice inside my head. Well, these are parts of your consciousness that are crying out for your loving attention. These are the parts of your consciousness that through your loving attention to them, they want to be integrated into the unified field of your whole self. They are not to be judged, although they can feel very judgy towards you. I mean, they can even feel quite punishing depending on how much trauma that you survived. For years, I've navigated a voice within me that I've had to call the inner punisher to actually help my awareness identify that this was the punishing voice that I had to internalize, almost to like keep me one step ahead of the perpetrators. Like if I punished myself into submission, maybe I wouldn't catch it so bad in my day-to-day reality of what I was surviving. Can you relate to that in some capacity? Yeah. And so this is what we're talking about. What's interesting about these parts of our consciousness that feel disoriented or even a little bit crazy or frenetic or punishing is that they are trapped in time. And if you met those parts of yourself, whether it was a 15-year-old or a 4-year-old, as someone outside of yourself, would you judge them? Would you alienate them? Would you call them names? Would you throw your hands up in the air and walk away from them? You wouldn't. You would feel so sorry for them. You would be like, oh my God, I can't believe what you went through. How can I help you? I'm here for it. I'm here for the conversation. And yet, these parts of ourselves can feel so overwhelming inside of us. This is why we work with the Ascended Masters, Mother Mary, Kuan Yin, Isis, Hathor, Green Tara, all of these beautiful Ascended Masters to help us slow down when these parts of our consciousness get really loud and they unknowingly try to take over your nervous system. Have you ever felt those parts of your consciousness try to take over? Like they jump into the front seat of the car and they want to grab the steering wheel of the car, or maybe they reach for an addiction or end up having sex with somebody you know you shouldn't. It's just like maybe there's some kind of frenetic spending that happens. You know that that's a part of your consciousness is taking over your nervous system. And then when those things finally calm down, you look back and you're like, "Whoa, what just happened? Who was that inside of me?" Okay? We're going to talk about this. We're going to break this down a little bit. Now, for those of you who are experienced practitioners in trauma, everything I'm going to share is, probably old news, but it's also really nice that we're all going to revisit some of this together so that, the collective healing, the collective deepening, the collective integration of what is the reality of trauma and what is the reality of empowering ourselves beyond the trauma, transforming the trauma into genuine soul power. This is part of it, is sharing in this conversation together. So I want to share that this topic of self-regulation is so essential. So what is self-regulation? Like just think about the term to regulate something. If you're regulating something, You're checking in on the status of something, if you're regulating the pace of how a performance is unfolding, or you're regulating and checking in on a heartbeat, or you're regulating on your finances. It's like you're checking in on data points. You're continually checking in on the analysis of like what is happening in that particular subject matter. And when we're talking about self-regulation, we're talking about the journey of regulating your relationship with yourself, with your heart, with different parts of your consciousness that may be feeling dissonance from the wholeness of your higher self, from the wholeness of your soul. And what is that dissonance from? It's the dissonance that comes from the pain of unresolved trauma. And there's the act of what happens in abuse, and then there's living your life after that. And I think it's much harder to live life after the trauma than to survive the actual abuse, to be honest, because it can go on for days, months, years, decades of your life in the journey to heal even a single incident of trauma. And so this term self-regulation is the journey of learning how to love yourself, to check in on yourself. Like if you were responsible for raising a 5-year-old child, you're going to have to continually check on the 5-year-old child. Like feel out how they're doing. Make sure they're not doing anything dangerous to their bodies. Make sure they're feeling loved and fed and cared for. It's like this is the kind of checking in that needs to happen every day with your own body, your own heart, and your own emotions. Self regulation is the journey of reparenting the parts of your consciousness that desperately want to know that the trauma is over. They probably don't know that the trauma is over. How many times, if a child is scared of the dark, it might take many conversations to let them know that there's nothing in the dark to be scared of from your adult perspective, because you've checked and there's no one there. There's no monster, there's no person, no one's hiding under the bed. You get to reassure that child as many times as they need that they're safe to fall asleep. Your consciousness may need to be told many times that the trauma is over. And Monica is sharing, I feel very resentful about how much self regulation I need to do every day. And I want to share with you, Monica, and with everyone here, that is a very fair feeling to have. Sometimes I personally feel as though I'm a mother to about 100 children inside of me, and they're all screaming or playing or yelling or throwing things or trying to outfox me. Like I don't even know how I get through the days some days. And there's days in my healing journey that are absolutely exhausting. There's other days where they're all playing nice together. And those days are like, oh my God, the sun came out. And there's bursts of creativity, there's bursts of peace. And there's a lot of different approaches to how to bring coherence and acceptance to the inner child healing journey. And what I can share after years of both exasperation and resentment of how much I've had to heal, as well as breakthroughs and sudden unexpected joy from what's happened in my healing journey, is like what I've come to realize is that if I accept that there's resentment towards how much I have to heal, that acceptance about the resentment is actually self-love. It's just like, of course you feel resentful about it. Of course you don't like it. It's a lot of work. It's the accepting of all of our feelings and all of our anger and all of our frustration that actually creates sacred space for us to keep going. So I really want to honor your authenticity and sharing that in the chat. And I know we all feel like that different times. What's interesting is when you do take the time, like to really slow down, whether it's in your journaling, your meditation with a therapist or a coach, some form of therapeutic support. It's interesting, like when you take the time to share and walk them through at their level of consciousness, like a 5-year-old's consciousness that survived being raped is very different than, me at 47. Those like two different worlds. But when I take the time to talk to her the way she perceives the world and to walk her through her fears about what might still happen to her, it's like in her own language and really hear her perspective of what she's still afraid of, and then being able to bring her into the present moment through the conversation, it can shift things quite suddenly and unexpectedly. It doesn't mean it's going to be perfect right away. There's probably going to be a serious integration time when they finally realize that what has happened in the past is over now in the present moment. But these kind of conversations are a part of reparenting our consciousness. And that's in a daily practice of self love and self regulation. Self regulation is a form of self love. So, on a neurological level, what is self regulation? On a neurological level, which is a big part of healing from trauma, it's not the only part because healing from trauma happens on all four levels of your being: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. But on the physical neurological level, self regulation is the daily practice of choosing to calm your nervous system down from a sympathetic nervous system lifestyle. And the sympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for adrenaline oriented actions. So moving from that back into a parasympathetic nervous system lifestyle. So your sympathetic nervous system can do things like fight for your survival against a wild animal. Your sympathetic nervous system can cause your adrenaline to flee violence to safety in extraordinary ways. It allows your body to fight back, to protect itself, just to stay extremely hyper vigilant if there's an ongoing threat. But it is so powerful, the chemicals rushing through your body when you are in a sympathetic nervous system state of action and reaction. It literally turns off the parasympathetic nervous system functionings that allow for you to live a daily, normal, peaceful life. So your parasympathetic nervous system, it's a its function starts in your brain and extends out along long, large nerve fibers that connect into special neurons near major organs. And your parasympathetic nervous system, it is what animates your eyes and, interestingly enough, your tear glands. So you'll know a sign that you'll know when you've moved from sympathetic to parasympathetic is you can finally cry. So, like, say something super traumatic happens, but you can't cry, you can't release. It's because the sympathetic nervous system is overriding the parasympathetic nervous system's ability to mourn, to grieve, to cry. Your parasympathetic nervous system acts upon the glands that produce saliva. So when you're in a sympathetic nervous system moment, your mouth gets really dry, like in shock. But you'll know you're back into the parasympathetic nervous system when the saliva starts to come back. Maybe you start to yawn. You feel like the wetness in your mouth return. Interestingly enough, the parasympathetic nervous system is deeply connected into your stomach and your core, including a significant contributing factor to trauma recovery. It is the vagus nerve is a big part of the parasympathetic nervous system. And this is a nerve that deeply impacts digestion and elimination. So if you suffer from chronic constipation or diarrhea, if it's really hard for you to digest food, you may be living a life predominantly in sympathetic nervous system, adrenaline, and anxiety instead of the parasympathetic nervous system that allows for you to really relax into your digestion and your elimination process. The parasympathetic nervous system also connects into your bladder, could affect your urination. It connects into the nerves and blood vessels responsible for sexual arousal. So, if you're living mostly in sympathetic nervous system, you could have your sexuality just totally shut down because you can't even connect to it. That's a parasympathetic, a relaxed state of intimacy, physical and just intimacy that comes from being online, your parasympathetic nervous system online, and overriding the sympathetic nervous system. Now, an exception to that would be if you have, if you're using your sexuality as a way to numb out your body more through the sympathetic uh, reaction and use of addiction. But even then, you're not really going to feel the deep intimacy. It'll be a mechanical sexual addiction energy in the sympathetic nervous system. So the reason why I wanted to review this is like, I just feel like it's so important for us to understand how physical this journey is to pivot out of of a sympathetic nervous system lifestyle. So what are some and back into the parasympathetic nervous system, which is what connecting with the Sophia Code teachings, the living transmission, the ascended masters, your higher self is continually supporting you to do. Because the sympathetic nervous system can become like a coke addiction. Adrenaline courses through your body. It's a high level, it's a high intensity state of being that you can confuse with performance and a hypervigilance that can give you a false sense of safety, but you're actually just living in a state of constant anxiety. So some of the symptoms that you could recognize if you're in a sympathetic nervous system addiction is that it might be hard to digest or eliminate your food. You may be living with constant anxiety, hypervigilance. You may be easily triggered by others. You may experience uncontrollable emotional states that sabotage your daily peace. It may be hard for you to sleep, impossible to fully relax. You may find yourself overworking or struggling with frenetic spending, addiction, and it might be hard for you to feel close to others because if you get too close, you may end up being triggered and hurting them, and that might make you afraid to connect with others because it takes so much energy for you to manage and self regulate yourself. So, in summary, a sympathetic nervous system lifestyle. Just hang in there with me because this is very important for us to recognize what we're up against. I know it's uncomfortable for some people. I'm seeing that in the chat to really hear out what this trauma addiction can create. But how can you know the battle you're in unless you know the battleground? Like you have to look at all of the pieces on the chessboard. It's really important for us to understand like the dynamics of what we're seeking to address. So the sympathetic nervous system lifestyle, what is it seeking to do? It's seeking to recreate the panic, the extremism, the intensity and the adrenaline of your traumatic memories. Why? Why would the hippocampus in your brain want to do this? Why would your body become addicted to these neurological pathways that keep you in a sympathetic lifestyle? It's because they're not going to stop firing until you create new neurological pathways to live from your parasympathetic nervous system because it's constantly in provoking you to your healing journey. Trauma literally becomes a broken record, and you have got to take the needle off the record and put a different record on the record player. There's no other way. And that's what drives survivors insane. They're like, are you kidding me? I had to survive what I survived. And then I had to survive the years after what I survived. And now you're telling me I have to work really hard to create new neurological pathways to live a parasympathetic lifestyle? And yes, my friends, the answer is yes, you do. The chemicals in your body are so powerful. These neurological pathways are so powerful. Your brain, your hippocampus, which is responsible for the memories of your trauma, are so powerful that you absolutely have to take a daily, measured, practical approach to self regulation, self love, to committing to a parasympathetic lifestyle. There's no other way because these chemicals are always going to try to get you off course. You could say, I want to go to bed every night at 9 o'clock p.m. because I know that's how much rest my body needs. And these chemicals are going to try to keep you up till midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. every night. Every night. It's like the journey of spiritual self mastery is understanding the battle that is physically happening within you. Like the trauma is going to keep wanting to drag you to more trauma. Number one, because those neurological pathways want to be fed. The sympathetic nervous system wants to keep in that high state of alert because that's what it's meant to do to keep you alive. But on an emotional level, the trauma, the emotions are addicted to the trauma because it keeps urging you to keep looking at the root of all the trauma. And what's so sad is the survivors try to bypass healing the root of the trauma, and then they create all this drama on top of the trauma, more trauma in their life. And then they're like, well, I'm buried under a mountain of trauma and drama. I can't do this. And that's not true. When you look at what's really happening, that it is up to you to create a parasympathetic lifestyle. That this is part of spiritual self-mastery. Everyone thinks spiritual self-mastery is like ascending with Jesus in the clouds. It's like, no, it's about ascending within your body, deep, deep, grounded into your life. The modern mystery school of your daily life. The temple of your body is seeking to create new neurological pathways of a parasympathetic lifestyle. What does that look like? Well, it's going to feel really boring at first. It's going to look like making a concerted effort of how you eat, what you eat, when you eat, when you sleep, how you take care of your body, the kind of relationships you allow in your life, the kind of relationships you no longer allow in your life, how often you look at the blue screens that are going to keep you up all night, how often you're going to be doom scrolling versus like focusing on the content, the books, the teachings that are going to help you thrive and blossom in your life and to calm down, the kind of music that you listen to, the lyrics that you listen to, how much time you spend in nature or not spend in nature, your willingness to if you can't afford therapy, read as many books. You can take out books from the library about healing and bringing your consciousness into wholeness. And if you can afford therapy and different types of healing support, practitioner support, interviewing those therapists, not just throwing yourself at them. How would you, if you're parenting a child or an adolescent, would you just throw them into the fire of a coach or a classroom environment without actually researching it or interviewing? No, you're going to take the time to find out, like, okay, who am I subjecting my child to? Like, who am I inviting into this very vulnerable, tender space of who gets to work with my consciousness as I, do this very sacred and profound inner work of healing my relationship with my heart and my life and what happened to me. There are so many ways that the sympathetic nervous system is going to try to pull you out of it to distract you from the very grounded step-by-step loving daily practices that you need to be embracing every day, that even coming down to like building just like healthy physical lifestyle. Like that we're in a wood dragon year, so this is really coming up for us. Have you noticed that like any addictions to not treating yourself the way you deserve to be treated are really being highlighted for you right now? Like your home environment, is it a peaceful, grounded, sacred space? Or is there an overflow of things that you don't need or things that make you feel bad about your past? Are you willing to remove what no longer serves you? Like, we can hold trauma in place while avoiding it at the same time in so many unconscious ways, just in our home. Feng Shui is such a powerful way to start clearing the outer space, which then opens our hearts to clearing the inner space. A parasympathetic lifestyle is going to, if you're just getting unhooked from a sympathetic lifestyle, you're going to be like, whoa, I don't have drama. I don't have anybody blowing up my phone with all their problems. I have, wow, more time than I could ever imagine to focus on myself or what I'm really here to do for my purpose, my creativity. Gosh, maybe I guess I have time and resources now to take that class. Or my goodness, look at this. This door just opened up that I've been wanting to like it's going to look and feel so differently that it's actually going to trigger you. And so what the Ascended Masters and the Sophia Code teachings, offer us is like, oh, this is how we get used to the energy of peace, calm, success, the quiet breakthroughs that lead to greater quietness in our life that allow us to think clearly and not feel like our lives are always on fire. How is this landing for you? I'm curious. And I really hope this is helpful because I have been working with self-regulation as such an important journey of my self-love practice that it is like staggering to me. Every year that goes by, I unwind even more from the grip of the sympathetic nervous system. And I'm like, oh my God, I had no idea how much anxiety I was living in last year. And then I look at the year before, and then I look at the year before, the hypervigilance, the inability to sleep, the inability to digest my food. It's like I'm living in so much more peace now that yet I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I'm just dipping my toes into the pool of what's possible with a parasympathetic nervous system lifestyle. And I feel the pull back to that sympathetic all the time. But it's like that is the prayer. That is the self-mastery practice of a survivor. It's like, how can we celebrate the daily quiet victories of no drama? How can we celebrate being in a clear space where you could create something you've always wanted to create, but it terrifies you? What if that was the next step? What if you were like, okay, my life is less trauma oriented, but now I'm actually terrified by the quiet in my life. Can you sit in your seat of power? Can you sit in your circle of empowerment and just lay down on the floor and cry about how great it is to have some sacred space that you're too terrified to even use? Like, I'm telling you, that's part of the transition from sympathetic to parasympathetic lifestyle. It's not about like, oh, wow, okay, great clear space, no drama. I'm getting into my art room and it's all gonna happen. Boom, boom, boom. I'm on fire. And you're just like, oh my God, I have a free hour and clear space. All I can do is sit here because now I have to be with the one who wants to be working in the art room, but she's terrified to move the pencils. So let's just sit here and play with my puppy on the floor. Let's just be with that part because we finally got here to the floor in the art room. You feel me? I know I'm just giving an example from my personal life, but it's just like those are the breakthrough moments. They're not the moments where I'm physically working on my next creation. They're the moments that help me line myself up for a decade of creation because I'm not going to force myself to do something that a part of my consciousness is still having a conversation with me about what happened when I was creative as a child and how I was punished for it. We're having that conversation on the art floor with love and kindness and now a puppy. Who knew? I loved myself enough to bring a puppy into my life. It only took me 46 years. I'm just saying, like, this is what the journey looks like. That quiet moment of realizing that that was a breakthrough for me a couple months ago, it was like, oh my God, it brings tears to my eyes. Like, that is walking over the bridge from sympathetic nervous system to parasympathetic nervous system lifestyle. A parasympathetic nervous system lifestyle has space for the grief, it has space for the rest, and it has space for the listening. It has space for the in between space. Beyond black and white, there's all these different colors and shades of the rainbow that are welcoming in the most intimate healing moments of your life. But you have to be still enough, quiet enough, available enough to hear the healing that's already seeking you out. When we blame ourselves for freezing up, when we blame ourselves for still being stricken down by the trauma, we're missing the victory that's happening in the moment that we're actually seeing that we're frozen and that we have the capacity. There's other parts of our consciousness that can like embrace ourselves and bring warmth to that frozen part of ourselves. Maybe even laughter, maybe even a puppy. And so strangely enough, we can become so unconsciously addicted to the sympathetic lifestyle, we don't even know we're so wound up and wound into it. And it can be very humbling when you start to realize how much you're living life through hypervigilance and how much you've been blaming yourself for the hypervigilance, because the hypervigilance, the sympathetic lifestyle kept you alive. It kept you safe at one point in your life. And now it's up to other parts of your consciousness to pick up the pieces that were broken and the parts of your consciousness that don't know that those times are over. And if you're perpetuating that trauma to continue in your life, that you have the power to stop the perpetuation of that trauma. You do. If I can do it, you can do it. There's like bottom line. There is the power within all of us. It's been given to each of us. Sophia Code declares it, that we've all been created sovereign and divine, equally sovereign and divine. No one is above anyone else. So that is a little bit about what I wanted to share about self-regulation. That over time, with a commitment to that self-regulation is a part of your spiritual mastery. Because the more you practice self-regulation, the more available you are to hear your divine guidance, which is guiding you to live an extraordinary life. Truly, it's not guiding you to live an ordinary life. Like, it is guiding you to live an extraordinary life with extraordinary opportunities, extraordinary blessings, extraordinary abundance. But living in a sympathetic lifestyle, you literally have no space to receive the life that life is attempting to bless you with. And so committing to the daily practice of how you care for your body, how you choose to either wind yourself up or choose to learn how to unwind and practice a measured, regulated, self-loving, self-caring approach to life, it's going to open you up spiritually. The other thing with trauma is that unresolved trauma, makes you feel unworthy of greater abundance. It makes you feel unworthy of greater connection with your source. And so these practices of treating your time and your energy and your body and your schedule with the loving respect and sacredness that it deserves, it actually leads to a greater spiritual expansion. Your intuition starts to feel safe to blossom. When your intuition feels safe to blossom, you start to receive greater divine downloads. With greater divine downloads, you are given the choice. Are you going to be courageous enough to follow the divine downloads that you're receiving? And you have to be living enough of your parasympathetic lifestyle to know that you're worthy of reaching for that golden ring and taking those steps that are going to bring you into new places in this world and new spaces within you that are unfamiliar. Sympathetic lifestyle does not like what is unfamiliar. What is unfamiliar is dangerous and could kill you. Parasympathetic mindset is, oh, unfamiliar could lead to greater opportunities. Who knows? Maybe greater abundance, maybe more creative collaboration. It could be fun. Sympathetic nervous system is like, fuck that. You're going to be attacked. Head for the hills. Anything unfamiliar is dangerous. Do not risk it. Stay exactly how things are. You see the difference? There is ease. There is openness. There is self-love. There is safety in the parasympathetic nervous system lifestyle. At the very least, there's curiosity, even if there's alarm. In the sympathetic nervous system, everything's a threat and somehow everything's out to get you. The Sophia Code is a living transmission. When you listen to the recordings of the prayer collective calls, when you listen to the curriculums, when you walk through the Sophia Code with the Stargate 1 curriculum journey, when you allow yourself to be immersed with these activations, we have so many spiritual tools that you can explore. You are attuning yourself to the resonance of that parasympathetic nervous system, knowing that your higher self is here for you, that God is providing everything for you, that it is safe to choose safety, that you do not have to be addicted to drama to keep reminding yourself to heal your life. You can discover your healing journey through a step-by-step, secure relationship with your source. I hope that this brief dissertation on self-regulation has been helpful for you.